So welcome to our web session from Unschooling Canada. We have these sessions every month, the third Wednesday of the month, and they start at 6 o'clock in the west and 8 o'clock in the east. So if you're joining me today, welcome. I'm not really in France, but kind of want to be there. So tonight's session is the science of screen time. So how we're going to do this is a lot of people contacted me today and wanted a recording because they couldn't make it. So I am going to record, and then after, it shouldn't take more than 30 minutes, and then we'll just open it up to questions if that's okay. So thank you for coming. And my name is Judy Arnall, and I am an unschooler. I've unschooled my kids, and I also am certified in the brain story through Alberta Family Wellness, and I'm also certified in the growing brain from birth to age 5, from 0 to 3. I'm an author. I have written 5 print books now. One is on discipline, so how to solve parenting challenges without any punishment. And one is on getting a grip, handling stress and anger, and that's parenting with patience. And we have a new book out called Attachment Parenting Tips, and this is 384 pages of just ideas from my 23 years of facilitating parent groups. I've got a lot of ideas and tips from parents on how to handle pretty well every situation from 0 to age 13. And then the latest book is Unschooling to University, and it's on my experience unschooling my 5 kids and their 25 friends. So, okay, so we'll move on. And what I like to do is I'm going to just kind of turn my video off because sometimes it's very distracting to me. So if you don't mind, I'm going to say there. So I want to focus tonight on the brain, because a lot of people's concerns are about children's development, their academic, their social, their emotional, their physical development, and how digital technology is affecting their development, since we live in a digital world. So we're going to talk about that. Where does the information I get come from? It comes from Canadian Pediatric Society, Health Canada, Alberta Health Services, the Palix Foundation, American Academy of Pediatrics, and I should add here the Growing Brain. So we have a little bit of bias in our society in that we tend to value book reading over screen reading. And we need to be careful because literacy involves any kind of information, whether it's on a screen or a page. Content is content, and our children need to learn how to handle it and manage it. So I'll give you a question here. Of all these items here, what is not technology? Which one thing is not technology? Anybody want to guess here? Doom, 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 doom. What do we have some guesses. There is one. One thing here is not technology. Doom, 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 doom. Okay, I will tell you what it is. It is the strawberry. Yes, good. All you who guessed strawberry. That is not technology. That just comes the way it comes. It grows and it continues. But everything else here is technology. And there can be useful tools and they can be not so useful tools depending on the context and the environment, right? So technology is not good or bad. It depends on what we do with it. So screen time is defined as anything with a screen that is electronic. And these are all different types of screens we use. And obviously our children are using a lot more now. So technology is not good or bad. It's how we use it and the outcomes of our lives. So a lot depends on the child because, children come with different personalities, temperaments, ages, and stages. And they do or are affected by technology differently. It depends on the content they're watching, whether it's, hardcore Call of Duty when they're 3 years old, or if it's something that's a little more age appropriate. And context, right? So context is a parent they're consuming with them? Are they using technology to engage with others? Are they using Zoom to engage with grandparents? That kind of thing. So a lot is dependent on those 3 variables. I'll tell you right now, we have only had the iPad since 2010. So we've only had a decade of tablets, and with tablets, a mass use in children. And there's no clear evidence-based conclusions of the effect of technology on children older than 5 years old. Once children have their language and vocabulary down, like around age 5, then there's not really any good studies. There are so many studies, but none with conclusive evidence of whether our children are getting dumbed down by technology or whether they're getting smarter, ramped up with technology. We need more long-term studies. So how does this relate to the brain? Because we're all worried about the brain. We're educators. Oftentimes we hear people say, oh, my child's addicted to this video game. And I just want to explore with you right now. Let's use proper language. I think what they mean is my child is compelled to play a game, but true addiction, I wouldn't think is what is the case. So here's a question for you again. Addiction, is it caused by lack of willpower or is it caused by brain impairment? Okay, so here's another question for you. Anybody want to write in the chat box or tell me what you think? Is it willpower or brain impairment? People are going to answer because they don't want to hear any more of my singing. Okay, so the answer is it is brain impairment. Okay, so a lot of our children do not have impaired brains and therefore are not addicted to screens. Yes, they may spend a lot of time on them because they're very interesting and they keep kids engaged. Really good things on the internet keep kids engaged a lot more than other things, but it's not addiction. Okay, why can't my cursor move here? Okay, so like I said, our passion for screens, again, we don't know if it's a cultural shift, which it is. I mean, more and more everybody is on screens. Or is it a developmental stage that children really, really like screens, and especially teenagers? So without that kind of research of how do we define overuse, how do we define treatment of the overuse, they can't include it into the DSM-5, which is the Bible of psychiatric disorders. So the DSM-5 is a diagnostic statistical manual that defines what abnormality is and how to treat it. The World Health Organization has declared it a problem, but it has not been included into the last version of the DSM-5. So without that, we have to err on the side of caution, right? So we know a few things. We know that Screen time, video gaming, internet use is closest in nature to a gambling addiction. But in lack of good evidence-based long-term studies, all we can say is use it in moderation and make sure you have life balance. So, society worried when books replace conversation, and then TV replaced books, and then gaming replaced books and conversation. So we still do, we're social creatures, we're social animals. In this time right now of isolation, the number one thing that people miss the most is hugging their loved ones. And you can't tell me you can't get that from a screen. We all know we can't get that from a screen. So we are still social people that love face-to-face interactions. And we all have individual needs. Some of us are introverts and don't need a whole lot of face-to-face interaction. Other people are extroverts and just love to be out there with people. So, but we all need a little bit. Now, back to the brain. So the brain is born. It's not quite developed when it's born. It's developed after birth through connections between neurons. But everybody has genes in our DNA. Genes are hereditary. So if I had a grandfather who had, say, an alcohol addiction, I may have that gene. If you look at the brain as a house, right? These little red spots in this Lego house are the genes. And we don't know, we don't have the technology or the research yet to determine which one of these red spots is the addiction gene. It can just lie there dormant. How is it expressed? When we're under stress, it can be expressed as an addiction, but it might not be. And some people, it isn't. And we don't have enough research yet to determine with a good idea of who would have that gene expressed and who wouldn't. We just know the likelihood of it being expressed when somebody's under stress is a lot greater. So genes are nature's blueprints, but the nurturing environment is what builds the wiring, the walls, the plumbing, and everything else. And in a healthy family with low ACEs, most children will not be addicted to anything. Okay, genes may or may not express, but if there's not a whole lot of toxic stress going on in the family, children will be fine. So there's positive stress, which is good stress. There's tolerable stress, which is bad stress, but it's something you can't have. Yeah, it's buffered by caring people and it's not ongoing. Toxic stress is what impairs brains. That is prolonged, it's unpredictable, and it's not buffered by caring adults. So something that could be tolerable stress. For example, if a parent gets cancer, okay, that it can be very stressful to a child. But as long as that child is supported, it moves, keeps it under tolerable stress, not toxic stress, and it doesn't impact the brain. So there are about 10 different addictions. There's substance addictions and there's process addictions. And they're all the same pretty well. If somebody has a gene for addiction, it doesn't matter which addiction one chooses. They're interchangeable. And the common theme here is that when someone engages in addiction, the dopamine released calms the stress response. And that's why people are more apt to go back to their addiction when they're under stress, when the body needs relief. Okay? Most children on the internet or playing video games are not in this situation. The other thing that impairs brains and leaves it more susceptible to expressing that addiction gene is what we call adverse childhood experiences. Now, 70% of people grow up with one of these or zero. And this is what I call my no-no list of parenting. These are the 10 things that really matter not to do in parenting. Doesn't matter if you bottle feed or breastfeed, or even if you spank. I hate to say that, but really, physical punishment is really only one ACE. And most people that grow up with one ACE grow up fine, absolutely fine. They develop into healthy, productive adults. But 15% of the population have 3 or more of these. And this is what impacts brains. So emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, witnessing abuse, non-attachment or constant criticism from adults, witnessing untreated mental illness, witnessing addiction, parental absence or jail, and or neglect of basic needs. So in most families that are healthy and do not have 3 or more of these ACEs, children, their brains develop fine, okay? ACEs cause toxic stress. Toxic stress releases cortisol that impacts the brain, especially the prefrontal cortex of the brain, the executive function, that ability to handle self-control, okay? So the big thing there is adult support changes toxic stress to tolerable stress and mitigates any damage to the brain. And as homeschooling, unschooling parents, we are most supportive of our children. We are good parents. They can video game 24 hours a day and they will not get addicted, okay? Addiction is not related to the amount of time. It's related to a person's brain impairment. So in nurturing families with low ACEs, addictions are very, very rare. So it becomes a matter of game time, and screen time is a matter of how you want to spend time as a family and how much time you can stomach your children being on screens pretty well. So that's kind of brain basics. Now I want to go through developmental stages. So we know children develop in 4 dimensions: physical, cognitive, but also very much in social, emotional, okay? They develop, like I said before, for the most part, neurons are connected before birth just to keep those lower brain functions happening. The heart going, the lungs breathing, all those basic body things going. But after birth, it's experiences and interactions with their environment and adults that form those connections between those brain cells. So that's really important. If children have a lot of screen time from ages birth to 5 years, they're going to develop a lot of connections, but as long as they also have interactions with adults, what we call serve and return interactions. So when they talk to adults and adults talk back and engage in conversations, that's what builds those brain connections. So it's important for babies and toddlers. These are the screen time recommendations that came out in 2015 and 2017. So the American Academy of Pediatrics came out in October 2015. They kind of buckled under pressure and they said, okay, 20 minutes a day screen time for under 2 years, and under 18 months, none except for video chat with, family members. And then Canada's came out almost 2 years later. The Canadian Pediatric Society came out in May and they said, no screen time under age 2. And really, kids do not need screen time. Most children learn a lot in 3-dimension. Their brains are wired 3-dimensionally, so they need to be up moving and putting everything in their mouths and tasting and smelling and touching everything. They learn through all their 5 senses, and that's the best way for them to learn. We like the screen time because they're quiet, they're not messy, and we know where they are. And that's fine as long as we still keep up the language development, the chatting, and letting them play with toys, right? There's lots of toys in their environment. They can't be on screens all day. That's not good. You can see the many technological devices here for screens to keep kids entertained. Okay, but remember, they have to learn through 5 senses. Screens only tickle 2, just their eyesight and ears, but they need to smell, touch, move, taste, see, feel, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so we had a big study in Alberta that went across Canada called the Early Child Development Mapping Initiative between the education and the healthcare. And what it found was that across Canada, across all socioeconomic levels, 1 in 4 kids are at risk for language, social, and emotional impairment by age 5. That's because not only do they not talk to us, we're not talking to the kids. So we need to keep up those conversations, our vocabulary, using big words, talking to them when they want us to pay attention to them, reading, singing, all that kind of stuff. So if we keep doing that, they're going to get the language development, and with language comes social and emotional competency. If a child has their truck stolen, let's say they're 4 years old at a play group, and some child comes up and steals their truck, and they don't have the words to say, no, it's mine. And instead, they push that child, right? They need language for social relationships. And according to the Center of the Developing Child at Harvard University, language development is strongest in the first 5 years, okay? And even so, in utero, it starts in utero. That first year is big, and then it continues for 5 years. So children really, really need language development. So they need adults to talk to them. As you can see, this graph for higher cognitive functions keeps on going here. So that's why screen time doesn't really affect kids that are older, that have language development, they have the words, the vocabulary. It helps them learn. Okay, so serve and return interactions are important. So yes, there are times where you put kids on screens and, we're all normal parents, but just to keep up the language development. I put together this little kit when my kids were little. It's just a lunch bag of things to do instead of handing over a screen. So there's a little flashlight in there, some Play-Doh, bouncy balls, dice, pack of cards for the older kids, markers and paper, and pipe cleaners. So if obviously kids need something to do, they need to be occupied while you're waiting or you're out in public or things like that. And that keeps brains, they're unstructured toys that keep them creative and busy. So recommended screen time for preschoolers was 1 hour a day, and both the Canadian Pediatric Society and American Academy of Pediatrics agreed on that. So 1 hour a day for preschoolers. If it's comforting to know, a lot of families exceed that. I remember exceeding that when my children were young. They watched, when The Lion King came out in 1994 and we got the video, they must have watched that video, which is at least an hour and a half, about 5 times a day. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. But we did have other toys. We had lots of open-ended toys for them to play with. We also played games. We also talked a lot, and they didn't seem to be that affected. Recommended physical activity here is 3 hours per day active play and 1 hour of energetic play. Now, school-agers, 6 to 12 years, recommended screen time for school age was under 2 hours a day, and then schools kept using more and more screen time. And I remember thinking, oh, my kids are on so much screens all day. Maybe I should put them into school so that they'll do more interactive things. And then I actually observe schools and realize how much kids were on screens in schools too. So now the new recommendation due to public pressure is to just have balance in their lives. Have enough physical activity time, have enough social time in person, and both CPS and AAP recommend that. Recommended physical activity for school-age children are 30 minutes a day. So this is my gang. I kind of blew it one day and I said, okay, enough screens, you're done. Go outside and play. And here they are. They're on our deck and they're playing the Wii through a 1/2-inch thickness of glass on the patio right there. So when your kids are silent, you got to go check and see what they're doing. But the good news is one of these kids is now working for a major video game manufacturer in a career job. And he's the person that I worried about the most for spending so much time video gaming, so much. This is an interesting statistic, is that some people say our declining math scores are that kids need to experiential math in real life rather than do so much on paper. They need to feel and touch math problems. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so School-Agers, there's some safety tips. These are really old. Sorry, I didn't really. If you're worried about screen time, and there are families that limit screen time, and there are families that have no limits. And you know what? It's all good. It depends on what you as a family value and what you want to spend your free time doing. In my family, I have 5 gamers and my husband's a gamer, and the kids all get on video games in different cities, different countries, different time zones. I have one son across the ocean, but it's so nice when they get together and I hear them all over Discord game chat and they're working together to blow something away. So for my family, gaming is a connector. But for other families, it could be an isolation thing. One thing we did was we kind of cleared out our living room and we donated our living room to the game room. So my kids all have their gaming computers in one room so that we can all spend some time together. I found that worked for my family. It was important that we could interact and see each other and share tidbits in between rounds of games. So you have to decide what works for you. I didn't like my kids alone in their bedrooms. I wanted us to be communally together, even if we weren't interacting together. So these are some tips on how to set limits. The big point here is do it with the kids, not at the kids. This should be a family conference thing. What is your family limits? And without saying it should apply to parents as well as kids. I have a contract on my website, professionalparenting.ca, under articles. And here it is. It's a respectful, non-punitive cell phone contract. So these are things that worked in our family. You could take that, see if it works in your family, and come up with your own rules. The kids came up with rules. The parents came up with rules. We had mutual safety agreements, and we all agreed to all of these together. So you might want to too. And recognize that for especially teenagers, social media is a huge part of life, right? That's what they do. So be a help for them. And be aware of what you're posting on the internet. Like, who's going to see this? Is it going to be your future employers or your I find some of my peers are the worst posters. I mean, the kids are really smart these days, and they have really good sense of what to post, but it's my generation that needs some rules. And it's helpful to have breaks. So a lot of families, when kids go to school, they pack away all the toys. They give away all the paints and the Play-Doh and all those fun things that kids could be doing. So, And don't forget that chores are really good break from screens too. It gives them some physical stuff to do. My major thing here was that if you want the kids to do something, you have to invite them. Like if you want them to take a walk, they're not going to go walking out the door and down the street. You have to go with them, and then they're more apt to go with you. And you have the most negotiation power before anything gets started. Absolutely. Negotiate before so the kids know, I got an hour and a half before my dentist appointment. Maybe I better not get into this game that takes, 12 hours to get anywhere. Teenagers. Okay, at this time, teenagers love screens because you know what? They can be anybody they want to be. They can explore new roles. They can research information on anything they want to know about. And it's their playground. They don't have to, deal with you or siblings. This is the development of the executive function, that prefrontal cortex I was telling you about under Brain Basics. And you can see here, it takes that final leap of development from about age 13 to 25. This is where the myelin sheath, that body between the axons and the dendrites, thickens. It thickens around that big long tube of the neuron. And that's really good because the more thick it is, the more it protects it and the faster the neurotransmitters come across. So that is the last development stage of the brain when we say the brain doesn't develop till 25. And kids' self-control develops. That's a big part of executive function is self-control. So by about age 16, a lot of kids think, okay, now I'm ready. I can't video game today. I got to go job hunt. Or, and we see that all the time. It's just a natural stage of brain development that kids start to build in more self-control. Games are compelling. There's hooks built into them to keep kids going. They have to go do these dailies, little daily chores on their games. That's to keep them coming back every day. Those developers know what they're doing. So it is, but they also reach an age where they know how to prioritize what they have to do first. They plan and they get very good at it. And this is good development for adulthood. Okay. You can see here from about age 3 to 6, very little executive function, self-control, and gaining it through the school age years. But you know what? If you pull them off a game, you're going to expect grumbling. That's what kids do. It's okay. So this is what teenagers use. But this is your role more. You're a teacher of good technology use for younger teens, but then you become a mentor for the older teens. You're their guide, their advisor, their problem solver. So help them negotiate how they are going to use technology. And they're watching you. So anything you do, you don't want them to do, don't do it. And this is just, I love this picture here. All this technology is making us antisocial. Look at all these people reading newspapers on the train. Nowadays it's devices, but back then it was newspapers. So things have not changed very much. So the best controls are the internal ones we develop ourselves. And most children are going to develop those controls with the development of their executive function. So that's that prefrontal cortex here. Now, unless they've had a lot of toxic stress in their lives from those adverse childhood experiences, those 10 no-nos I told you about, then they might have brain impairment in terms of their self-control. But most children grow up with loving homes with very low ACEs, and they can absolutely self-control their use of technology and screens. Okay, so don't worry. 7 keys of balance is really, really good. It's nice to get a little bit of this in every day. I mean, we try and get out for a walk every day now. And for us modeling it, the kids are starting to do it too. Even my gamers, they go out for a walk every day. They take time to family dinner. That's one of our contract rules, is that there are certain tech times that are not what we use technology at. So if we have a visitor drop in, we drop everything and pay attention to them. If we have a family meal, we don't have screens at the table. And those are kind of our rules. So you can develop your own. Okay, and remember, you know what? Those big rocks in the jar of life are people. People matter, and this is screen time that can fill in between the people, but put the people first. And there's tons of benefits, oh my gosh, of the internet. Here's my, here's a picture of my mother-in-law in England, and she's watching my son graduate through live streaming. Isn't that amazing? Like, oh, I love the internet. There are so many opportunities that wouldn't have been possible 20 years ago, right? So that's good. These are some of the benefits. I'm not going to read them all because you can see them here. But it encourages literacy. Like the number of people's amount they read is about 5 times what it used to be 20, 25 years ago, just because they're reading from screens now instead of, there's more to read, more access to read, and connects families. We all know now we're not in-person connected, but we're still connected, which is still good. Academic benefits of gaming, lots of good stuff here, especially for my children who had learning disabilities, had ADHD. Gaming was very, very good. It helped them excel at things that they felt good about. You know, if they're not really strong in academic subjects, it helps them feel good in other things. Self-esteem it builds. Instead of asking how to get your boys off the computer, ask how to get your girls on. In the gaming world, oh, we're so behind, so behind. So when my kids were growing up, they would write stories about Kirby. They'd sew these little Pikachu thingies and make Kirby puppets and Lego stuff and wooden stuff and painting stuff. And the games inspired other stuff. They learned a lot. They drew a lot. They made a lot. Here's some stuff. World of Warcraft. More costumes. Yay! League of Legends. Fortnite. PUBG. I guess we're a bunch of nerds, I think. Anyways, so this is what we did. A lot of life skill benefits of gaming. Helps people relax, zone out, teaches delayed gratification skills when they gotta work and get somewhere. Teaches focusing skills, builds confidence, provides a source in emotional intelligence. When people are frustrated, they learn how to control that. Socialization. So as you can see, here's our gaming living room. So I have a sofa here. I sit down and read, and then I listen and watch the kids game, talk to my kids who are not here, but I can hear on voice chat. So it helps all these things: team building, cooperation, group problem solving skills, provides opportunities for negotiation, provides a playground not micromanaged by adults, opportunity to explore, connects parents and siblings. And I think that's important. So a lot of people say, well, games are the things they can get to when they get through the educational stuff. And yet, games are educational stuff. There's no difference between educational games and non-educational games. It all teaches a lot of these competencies, even the non-educational games. So, food for thought. Okay, so this is where I get a lot of my information from. And at this point, I will open it up to questions. We have about 15 minutes because I have to do another webinar at the top of the hour. So, okay, I'm going to turn off recording. So thank you for coming tonight. I hope you enjoy this recording. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, and we'll see you next month, our third Wednesday of the month. And our topic, I think, is just Unschooling 101. Every fourth month, we do just a general unschooling. So thank you for joining us. And all the topics are on our website at unschoolingcanada.ca. Okay, I guess it seems to me we don't have any questions, so thank you all for coming. If you have my book, Unschooling to University, there's a whole chapter explaining the brain science and the power of screens and video games. So I'm a real pro person on new technology, and I think as long as we mitigate that with moderation and balance, the kids are going to be just fine. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Okay, bye everybody.